Okay, so let's talk about probiotics. Can that yogurt you're eating actually help you lose weight? It is a huge question, right? $1 billion question, really. Well, today we're going to cut right through all the hype and see what the science really says, based on a massive review of 200 different studies. So, have you ever been there? You feel like you're doing everything right. You're watching what you eat, you're exercising, but the scale just refuses to move. It is so frustrating, and trust me, you are not alone. But here's a thought. What if a huge piece of this puzzle has nothing to do with just calories in, calories out? All right, so let's get right into it. To find a real, solid answer, scientists did something pretty incredible. They didn't just run one little study. No, they pulled together the data from 200 different clinical trials, and they were looking for one thing. Could the secret to weight management actually be hiding inside of us, in our gut? Now, before we jump into what they found, let's just take a step back and appreciate how big of an issue this is. We're not just talking about a personal struggle here. This is a massive public health challenge all over the world. And honestly, the numbers are pretty staggering.
And no, that number isn't a typo. By 2025, it's projected that 1 billion adults around the world will be living with obesity. That's almost a fifth of everyone on the planet. So you can see why finding strategies that actually work is more urgent than ever.
Okay, so this brings us back to that hidden clue I mentioned earlier. Scientists are getting more and more interested in this bustling little community of microorganisms living in our gut. It's called the gut microbiome, and you can almost think of it like a tiny, super complex city living right inside you.
So your gut microbiota, it's made up of trillions of these tiny organisms. But what's so cool is that they're not just hanging out, They're not just passive passengers. They are actively helping us break down our food, pull energy from it, and they even send signals that can totally influence things like our appetite and our metabolism.
And that's where probiotics come into the picture. The whole idea is actually pretty simple. You just introduce more of the good guys into the system. Probiotics are these live, helpful microorganisms, usually bacteria, that when you take them in the right amounts, they can seriously improve the balance of that whole inner ecosystem.
But wait, there's more. Then you have something called symbiotics. A great way of think about these is like a tag team. You've got the probiotics, that's the good bacteria, and you also get their favorite food, which are called prebiotics. These are basically just special fibers. The whole point is to give that new, good bacteria the best shot at sticking around and thriving. So, okay, with all that in mind, the researchers went back to our big question. And like I said, they didn't just do another small study. Instead, they took this incredible bird's-eye view of all the really high-quality research that was already out there. And believe me, this was no small task. The team pulled together the results from 200 different randomized controlled trials. And you gotta know, that is the absolute gold standard in medical research. All of these studies were looking at the same thing. What effect do probiotics and synbiotics have on our weight? And get this, those 200 trials included a huge number of people. We're talking over 12,500 participants in total. Now that scale is so important because it helps you smooth out any weird one-off results you might get in a smaller study. It gives us a much more reliable picture of what's really going on.
This whole process, by the way, has a name. It's called a meta-analysis. You're basically combining all the data from all these people in all these studies. And what that lets you do is spot effects that might be too tiny to see in just one single trial. It's seriously one of the most powerful tools we have in science.
All right, so this is it. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. After crunching all that data, what did the science actually say? Does taking probiotics or synbiotics really make a difference? Let's take a look at the numbers. And wow, this really shows the big picture. On average, people who took these supplements saw a small, but definitely real, decrease in pretty much every category. They lost about 2 pounds of total body weight, their BMI went down, their waist got a little smaller, and, this is key, they lost about 2 pounds of fat. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Losing 2 pounds doesn't sound like some kind of miracle cure, right? But hold on, because there's a really important detail hiding in these numbers. When we talk about losing weight, it matters a lot what kind of weight you're losing. Is it just water? Is it muscle? Or is it fat? And here's the kicker. The analysis found that while fat mass went down, there was no change in lean body mass. In other words, people weren't losing muscle. And that right there is the dream scenario. The whole point of healthy weight loss is to lose the fat but keep the muscle, and that is exactly what this data showed.
But the researchers didn't just stop there. They dug even deeper. They wanted to see if certain things led to better results. And one of the biggest factors they found? Time. Turns out, how long you take these supplements seems to make a really big difference.
So let's look at this timeline because it tells a great story. Sure, they saw some good effects in studies that were less than 12 weeks long. But the longer people took them, the bigger the benefits got. The sweet spot for losing body fat seemed to be around 15 weeks. And for the biggest drop in overall weight and BMI, that took closer to 40 weeks. It really shows this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay, so what does all of this science actually mean for you, for someone who's just trying to manage their weight? Let's break it all down into the most important practical takeaways from this huge study.
So here's the bottom line. First off, the effects are real, they're statistically significant, but they're pretty modest. This is not some magic pill that's going to melt pounds away while you sleep. Think of it more like a helper, you know? It can support a healthy plan, but it's never going to replace the basics. Good diet, regular exercise. And finally, you got to be consistent. The benefits really seem to build up over the long haul.
You know, the authors of the study really said it best themselves. They concluded that these supplements could be a useful add-on to your overall weight loss plan. It's like it's one tool in the toolbox, but it's not the whole toolbox.
And all this leaves us with a really fascinating question for the future, right? We know that every single person's gut microbiome is super complex and totally unique. So as we learn more, could we get to a point where we have personalized probiotic plans? You know, something tailored specifically to your gut to help you optimize your health and your weight. This research really makes you feel like we are just scratching the surface of what's possible.